I had to walk out of church today over comments about Charlie Kirk.
Why?
I'm on the verge of tears sitting in this parking lot because I'm having such a complex with my faith.
Okay.
Because I genuinely don't understand how Christians are pushing this man as though hate didn't come out of his mouth and heart on a consistent basis. And I'm genuinely sitting here like, if this is the God that we serve, if this is the reflection of the God we serve, do I want to be a part of it? I'm truly having a conflict with my faith.
Right.
Because the leaders that we're supposed to be following are guiding us in this way to feel empathy and sympathy, and like that this person was this great Christian, and that the message that his wife gave was, it started off with like praising God.
So here we have a woman with the caption of her video that says, "I walked out of church over comments on Charlie Kirk." Why would she do that? Well, she says because the leaders, I'm assuming in her church, were expecting the congregation, the people who are listening and there to fellowship and experience church, they're expecting those people to feel some sort of sympathy or empathy. And she was conflicted. But you know what? It's okay to be conflicted because that's how you grow, right? Nobody's perfect, especially myself. And people who think they are definitely liars. There was a clash here, obviously, of beliefs. You guys have been looking at TikTok, but churches all over the nation were packed. Some people expected to go in there and hear a good word and encouragement, and for the pastor to probably discuss the current events, but others were expecting their pastors to not say anything at all. But I think what's very important here is two things to my guys, right? To men. Number one is, gentlemen, you can be kind to women who don't align with your values when it comes to very important situations. You can have conversations, you can be hospitable, but do not marry any woman out here who does not align with you when it comes to very important issues and core values. If it means this much to her, guys, and now I'm talking to the guy who may be dating in our modern day and values marriage, if it means this much to her and you feel differently about it, you're convicted differently about it, do not date or marry a woman who you have this much disagreement with. It will end up badly. This is my second point. This is particularly to those who have faith, believe in Jesus. Remember this, that when you finally meet God, the question won't be, what political party did you vote for? Right? That's not what they're going to ask you. They're not going to ask you whether you're left or right. I know there are people out here who think that like all Republicans are going to heaven or Democrats are going to heaven because of the party of love. Hate to burst your bubble, but the Bible does not say that. At the end of the day, it's about your relationship with Jesus. Why is that important? I would caution anybody who may be stuck in this group ideology mindset and may be making decisions when it comes to your faith based on your group that you identify with online. Instead of opening up your Bible, finding for yourself, hey, what do I believe? Sure, okay, I may not have felt empathy, but deciding issues on faith based on what you see the group doing, I believe that's something a lot of people today are vulnerable to. Let's talk about the sponsor of this channel, fathershaverights.com. Engaged and soon-to-be married men, a single prenup slip-up can cost you tens of thousands later. Waiting until the last minute or signing under pressure are the mistakes that sink most agreements. My step-by-step guide at fathershaverights.com, built with expert attorneys James Sexton and the lead attorney, shows you exactly how to avoid every costly prenup mistake, all for the price of a couple of dinner dates. Tap the link pinned to the top of the comment section to safeguard your future and join the hundreds of soon-to-be husbands protecting their marriages the right way. If you value Jesus and his teachings, remember it's about your relationship with Jesus, and did you try your best? Because at the end of the day, you're saved because of Jesus, but did I sincerely do my best to try and study, learn, and live my life the best that I knew how in this life imperfectly. Let's keep listening.
And I'm like, did we miss the chapter of hate that he endorsed, encouraged, and pushed? I don't know where to go from here. To spew hate and hide yourself behind a Bible, to me, is not something I want to be a part of. And it's not the faith I want to be a part of. So what do? I got up out of church and walked out. And I'm at a battle within myself, sitting here as like, to what do? I don't want him to be a reflection of what I believe. And what do you do when your leaders and your pastor is saying that is the reflection? To me, I feel like I'm smart. I feel like I've worked hard to get where I get, and to push a man who thought that I didn't have the thinking capacity to get to where I am, that I stole a white person's spot. Like, to think that that's the okay thought, that me as a black person can't function in this world and be just as great as the next, that I don't deserve where I am. Is that what God thinks of me? Is that what this faith thinks of me?
I think these are the same chicks who we've been talking about. When we talk about how in the past there was a reduction, because it's gone up, right? There was a reduction of presence of men in church. Men weren't attending churches. And that was because they weren't addressing serious issues. I guarantee you these are the same women who are initiating divorces at high rates. I guarantee you these are the same women who have feminist ideologies. And as a man, you want to make sure that you watch out for this. And you can't wife a chick like this, bro. That's all it comes down to. Perfect example right here.
Jesus would never advocate for black people to go back into slavery.
So she said Jesus would never advocate for black people to go back into slavery. Notice how she said that, and more on that later. Does that sound like a sincere statement? Or does that sound like a reframed statement to get you to think a certain way? Listen, it gets worse.
Jesus would never label any of his children as unnatural. Jesus would never encourage tradition. In fact, everything he did went against tradition.
Jesus would never encourage tradition. Jesus would never say something is unnatural. So I'm assuming there, maybe I'm wrong, comment down below, she's talking about homosexuality. And though that may go against my values, I would never turn away a conversation or even a friendship from somebody because I found out they were gay. But again, let's keep listening. This is what she wants you to believe.
Jesus would never advocate for gender structures that suppressed women. In fact, he spent so much of his life advocating for women and empowering women to be more than what society wanted them to be. Jesus didn't care about gender roles, and he would never enforce those ideologies onto people.
Jesus didn't care about gender roles. Forget that there is an actual structure, even in the New Testament, that talks about the importance of love within a relationship, but also the dynamics of power within that relationship, with man submitting to God and wife submitting to husband. Notice how this is just in line with everything I've been saying for years, is that a lot of these chicks are very liberal when it comes to their views in relationship, and feminism has seeped into the church very strongly.
Jesus would never be in support of any of the rhetoric that is happening about immigrants right now. Jesus would never support ripping immigrants away from their families and making immigrant children represent themselves in court. He would never be okay with openly and publicly calling immigrants criminals. He was an immigrant himself, and he was very clear about how he wanted us to treat immigrants. Jesus would never want religion to be forced on anybody. He would be directly against it. Jesus would never choose a political agenda or a weapon over the lives of children. Jesus would never welcome any sort of speech that caused division and aims to get rid of the diversity that he created. The body has many parts. Jesus would never encourage anyone to use the Bible to oppress and exclude people. And if your first instinct when you hear all those statements is to get angry and to argue, it's time for you to ask yourself, am I really following Christ, or am I following an agenda?
And so obviously there is a conundrum here, right? Like, you have her believing that anybody who does not support everything she listed there, that people can have a difference in opinion, right? Guys, like I heard Charlie Kirk speak a few times. I really didn't hear much of him. During the times I heard him speak, there's some things I disagreed with. What I didn't jump to is someone needs to take that guy out. But keep in mind here this group think of if people who all think the same way. And the question I'd ask you is, if you disagreed with one of those things, do you think that you would then become the enemy? Is she expecting perfection and perfect alignment from you? And because this is a man's channel, yes, I know there have been a lot of women who've subscribed to the Coffee Pod, that this is a man's channel. Doesn't mean you can't be here, might enjoy the content, but we talk straight. And it's not always nice and sugar-coated. But you got to make sure for dating or marrying any of these chicks like the plague, if you're a man who values marriage in our modern day. Top comment here says, people forget that Jesus was literally brown. Okay, that's okay. But I don't ask myself, is someone brown, before I listen to him.
Today I made a decision to stop going to the church that I've been attending. And the reason for that is because they did not talk about Charlie Kirk whatsoever. I always felt that this church may or may not have been for me, but today sealed the deal. They didn't say anything about Charlie Kirk. They are a feel-good church, so they'll come in and, I mean, they're nice people, don't get me wrong. The pastor is really nice, I've met him. But I want pastors that speak truth. I want pastors that tell you exactly what's going on, you know, exactly what you read in the Bible. I want them to talk about sin. I want them to talk about spiritual warfare. I want them to talk about Jesus' second coming and the end times. I want them to talk and tell me the truth. Don't just tell me that Jesus loves me and that you have to love everyone. I mean, we all know this. You don't have to be a Christian to love everyone and to be a good person. The whole point of going to church is so that they can teach you what's in the Bible. And I feel like they really missed the mark this week. And it just goes to show that they are just trying not to ruffle feathers. They don't want to rub people the wrong ways. And they care more about people attending their church than actually speaking truth. I want to be at a church where pastors feel bold, where they are making an impact. And so I have decided not to go to that church anymore. I'm going to be on the lookout for a new church. I'll be attending new churches every week until I find one that resonates with me, that speak truth, and I encourage everyone else to do the same.
Somebody else who says this is real Christianity that I recognize and love, right? Charlie Kirk might have been a Christian, but not a follower of Jesus' true teachings. But some of you may be conflicted. And this is where the inner self personal work comes in, is you have to separate yourself. Go read the Bible. What does the Bible say? It says, you shall know them by their fruits. Look at those people's lives. Ask yourself, are these people living in chaos? How do they treat people that disagree with them? Are they able to get along with people? Listen, I thought I was a patient person. I'm going to be honest with you. Going to get real for a second here. I thought I was a patient person until I got married.
Drink the coffee. It'll make you feel better.
I had to drink the coffee. And I realized that you would never be tested until you've committed to working things through with a significant other for the rest of your life, hopefully, God willing. And no, that does not mean that just because someone is unmarried, then they're not in alignment with what God wants for their life. It's not what I'm saying here. You got to follow me. On the grand scheme of things, you can see the general trend of a lot of these chicks. I assure you there's more groupthink here than people who are actually reading their Bibles.
I was so wrong about Charlie Kirk that I'm embarrassed and ashamed now. It's not, oh, we need to be decent even to people like Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a decent person. People attribute 3 main positions to him that justify shooting him in the neck for, and they are really taken out of context. And the context does not make it perfect, but let me tell you what the context is and you decide if it's still worth shooting him in the neck over it. The 3 positions are his quote about empathy, him saying the Civil Rights Act was a mistake, and then him saying a certain amount of unaliving is worth it to keep amendment numero dos. He said empathy is a new age term, and it's done a lot of damage. I prefer the term sympathy. That is the cadence of the original quote. It's actually really, really dishonest to cut it off where people have been cutting it off. Now, the way I define it, empathy is a higher order version of sympathy. Instead of how would you feel in their shoes, it's how would you feel if you were them in their shoes. So empathy isn't some new age term. It's a reflection of society evolving. But not being able to see that is not a capital offense, not even close. Anybody who's given you this quote for that purpose is not someone you can trust. Now, the civil rights one was crazy when I heard that. And the implication is obviously that he doesn't think black people deserve rights. Would I want to pew someone in the neck over that? It starts to get blurry because it's not just words, right? He's influential. Don't project stupid positions onto me, okay? Political violence is not off the table. Words are not just words. But here are some more of his words. He explicitly said the intention of the Civil Rights Act was good. His position was that other initiatives like DEI were attached to the Civil Rights Act, which was written too open-ended, and so the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. This is wrong for a lot of reasons. I'll just go with the simple one. At the time that the Civil Rights Act was passed, you couldn't pass a law saying, hey, just don't be racist, and then everything would work out fine. You had to put a lot of protections in. So this is clickbait, this is insincere, it's a trashy way to get more views. But it is not the same thing as saying black people don't deserve rights. I'm generally pro-DEI. I don't think you should be shot in the neck for being against DEI. And finally, he said a certain amount of unaliving is worth it to keep Amendment Numero Dos. He basically compared it to cars. Don't project stupid viewpoints onto me just because I'm defending a dead man. We have to register our cars, you have to have a license to have a car, and cars are a lot more integral to modern society than a bang-bang stick. But he also did go on to say that we should put armed guards at schools. Again, that's a little bit ridiculous, but still that's quite different from condoning these crimes. I would say this one's not a big mischaracterization. The people like sharing this quote in discussions about his death, I think that's fair game. It doesn't upset me. I believe that, he wasn't empathetic or sympathetic in any meaningful way to the victims of these crimes. And I'm not conceding that point because I'm not Charlie Kirk's best friend. I just didn't like how mischaracterized he had gotten, and I was shocked by what I found online. Also, I'm going to make a separate post about his position on transgenderism. But these things are squarely in the realm of things you can disagree about. He did not fall under the paradox of tolerance at all. And the people using that terminology to say that he didn't deserve tolerance, you are the problem. You are the people that history warned us about.
Hey guys, as always, I appreciate you for checking out yet another episode of the Coffee Pod. To my currently engaged or soon to be married men, if you need a prenup and would like a guide that shows you how to get a solid and legally binding prenuptial agreement, hit the link pinned to the top of the comment section and access your guide at fathershaverights.com today.